Ariel Helwani finally admitted today live on his show that BKFC and David Feldman scammed Frankie Edgar out of his fight purse, but Ariel Helwani is still sweeping it under the rug. We're going to break it all down in this video because what he did today on his show, I know some people would probably be like, oh, give Ariel his credit. He acknowledged it. I feel like Ariel was really trying to sweep this under the rug because he's friends with David Feldman. He's friends with Conor McGregor. That's why he doesn't care that Conor McGregor is a civilly liable sexual assaulter. Okay, that's why he invites him on the show. He owes those guys. He's like, oh, we're friends. And then he got a little bit of backlash last week. So now this week, he tried to talk about it again. Oh, look, I'm unbiased. Look, I'm an award-winning journalist. Look, I went to college. I'm so great, and I'm so intellectually superior, and I cover everything, and this and that. It really was bad, man. It was so dishonest. He used it as a pivot to promote his documentary again. And we're going to break it all down. You guys are going to see it for yourself. You guys can give me your opinion. So just to quickly catch you up to speed in case you haven't watched my other video on this, which I highly encourage you to go check it out. I will link it down in the description, then come back to this video. Essentially, BKFC, at least in my opinion, okay, based on the evidence we have, BKFC signed Frankie Edgar to a massive deal. Then as they got closer to the fight, they realized they weren't selling the tickets that they hoped for. So then they backed out of that deal with Frankie Edgar and then blamed it on his medical issues. Feldman went on Ariel's show, kind of played coy about it, said he passed all the medicals, but then he didn't pass all the medicals. Ariel let him off the hook. Then later that day, they pulled Frankie from the card. They said it was medical issues. And then Frankie came out and said, look, I passed all the medicals. And then Ariel covered it again for about a minute. And in that minute, all he did was read Frankie Edgar's statement. Offered no opinion and plugged his documentary. That's all he did. So you haven't missed that much. You missed a lot, but you haven't really missed that much from Ariel Helwani up until this point. Well, Ariel was asked about it again today. And I honestly believe Ariel decided to bring this up again and give a little bit more information because he did see the backlash from last week. I think there was a lot of people, there was enough people online saying, what's Ariel doing here? He's sweeping this entire thing under the rug? What's going on? So he finally did talk about it a little bit more, but honestly, it was disgraceful. It was embarrassing. The fact that he's like, oh, let me talk about it for 30 seconds and then let me pivot to promoting a puff piece for BKFC. He's like, listen, I know BKFC and David Feldman are snakes and they're slime balls and they brutally exploited Frankie Edgar. They exploited an old man, okay? A legend of the fight game, a former UFC lightweight champion. I know they exploited him and took advantage of him and used him to promote a card and then pulled him off of it and then lied about it. But you know what? It's not great, but I got a BKFC documentary coming out soon. That's essentially what Ariel Helwani did today, and it was an absolute disgrace. So anyway, we're going to check it out. Let's listen to his show. I'll link his full show down in the description because there is no dedicated video on this, which I noticed last week. You know, Ariel does his live like 3 or 4 hour show, and then whoever runs his channel clips it up real well, interviews, you know, individual videos. They do a great job of it. There's nothing for Frankie Edgar because Ariel Helwani only does 1 minute or 30 seconds on it per time he talks about it. Imagine had the UFC scammed a prominent fighter out of a fight purse. Imagine the coverage that would be required and that Ariel would probably do. I don't know nowadays because it seems like he's trying to get his job back with Dana White and the UFC, but that's besides the point. Imagine the level of coverage that should be done. It's no different. This isn't some regional organization. This is a BKFC organization that is owned by Conor McGregor, at least partially. That is talked about and covered nonstop by combat sports journalists like Ariel Helwani. And he doesn't even offer anything. I mean, we'll listen to it. Let's start.
Double. Is Feldman in question? This is David Feldman. After this whole Frankie situation seems to be the first Feldman red flag. What is your unbiased take?
Oof. Oof. You hear his guy in the back, one of the backdoor boys. They're like, damn, Ariel, how are you going to deal with that question? How are you going to deal with that one, Ariel? You're friends with David Feldman. He's one of your backdoor boys, Ariel. And let's listen to what Ariel has to say because he immediately basically tries to absolve himself from anything to do with this story.
I would say, look, if you want to separate Feldman from BKFC, fine, but I don't think it's the first BKFC red flag. I mean, certainly not from what I've heard. There have been some issues. I mean, he even said it on the show. There was an event that they had, a massive event in Denver, and he was rolling the dice. He said that if Conor didn't show up and if there wasn't that whole hullabaloo with Mike Perry, he may not have had enough money to pay the fighters on that card. And there were big names on that card, including Mr. Mike Perry.
So he's like, yeah, look, David Feldman, he's done things before that were unsavory. He's scammed people before. It's funny to me that last week David Feldman scammed Frankie and then tried to roll it into a positive because essentially David Feldman and BKFC's version of the story, unchallenged by someone the likes of Ariel Helwani or any MMA media for that matter, Damon Martin, was, listen, Frankie has CTE essentially, he has medical issues, and we're going to pay him anyway, and we're going to take him off the card for his health benefit. It's just insane to me that Feldman and BKFC could scam Frankie and then roll it into a story that they're the good ones. They're the good guys here. And Ariel was just going along with it. Now, he's basically called out about it. He said, well, look, Feldman's done stuff like this before. Does that make it okay? That doesn't make it okay at all. And it's funny. Again, another story. He's like, yeah, we're the underdogs here, man. I didn't know if I was going to have the money, but we pulled ourselves up by the bootstraps. That's essentially what that story from Feldman is. If Conor McGregor didn't show up, we wouldn't have the money. Give me a break.
That's an issue. Like that's a rolling of the dice. So what if Conor doesn't show up? You know what I mean? What happens? These guys just fought their asses off and got cut up and bloodied, broken hands, broken noses for free.
What about when they go through, an entire 2 months training camp, show up to promotional events, do all the promotion you ask of them, and then are pulled from the fight and basically tell everybody publicly you have brain damage, ending any potential fight career after that, and then pay you a very small percentage of what you were promised for getting off the couch. What about that?
That's a problem.
Remember that at the early event?
Of course, there was a death. Here's the thing.
Look, Ariel doesn't want to talk about that. He said, "Oh, cool. Oh, there was the death." The other guy brings it up. Well, there was a death. You know what I find absolutely disgusting? And I should have really brought it up in the video from last week, but it was already a very long video. And honestly, it just didn't pop into my mind. So Feldman scammed Frankie. I know I keep laying this out, but it just sounds so egregious when you say it out loud. He promised to pay Frankie. They didn't sell tickets. So then he said, never mind, Frankie. And then he blamed it on medical issues of Frankie and said, yeah, he wasn't cleared. And meanwhile, RIP Justin Thornton, who was 6-18 when BKFC signed him. 6-18, had been KO'd 10 times. Okay? Look at this right here, just in case you guys don't know. Died October 4th, 2021. This barely got any coverage from Ariel Helwani as well. Look at this. Look at this. KO'd 8 times in the first round. Okay? Showed up to BKFC, got KO'd in 19 seconds and died. That should have been one of the biggest stories in combat sports, barely covered at the time. I didn't have a channel then, so I couldn't cover it. But it's crazy to me that that's just kind of brushed over. Nobody even really talks about that. And Ariel goes on more. I mean, we got to continue. I just can't.
I have heard, and by the way, tomorrow, this is a good segue, our very first Uncrowned film is going to come out. It is called What is BKFC? It is going to premiere on the channel at 1 p.m. Eastern. Yes, that is usually when the show's live. I thought it would be good to air it when the show is usually live, and then our show will start right after.
Is anybody else disgusted by this, or am I just being over dramatic here? Oh, by the way, Frankie getting scammed out of hundreds of thousands of dollars? By the way, I have a puff piece coming out for BKFC. Make no mistake about it. That is what Ariel's putting out. Ariel is helping promote BKFC. That is what he's doing here. And instead of talking about what they did, okay, instead of reporting on it, instead of being a journalist, one that he's always talking about, I'm an award-winning journalist, I went to college for this. He's promoting his documentary. And he does it a little bit more in a second. Let's continue. Because he actually does give a little bit more info of what he knows that he's known for weeks and hasn't really said. So let's continue.
So it's about 47 minutes. We'll probably start at like 1:55, and then we'll have a regular show with some big names, and I'll tell you about them. But it's going to premiere. And it's a behind-the-scenes look at this company and what it is and what it's all about on that night in Newark a couple of weeks ago. And there is a moment where I do ask Conor McGregor about the Frankie Edgar situation because I had heard, and again, this was shot on the night.
Again, still won't even give a hint of what Conor McGregor had to say. I thought this guy was a journalist. So there's a big story, or what should be a big story, about a fighter getting scammed. You asked one of the owners, and you can't even offer up what he said. You just got to use it as essentially just a piece of your promotion for your shit documentary of you promoting a company that you are covering a major issue for them up, sweeping it under the rug. What a joke. It gets even worse, too. I mean, that's the crazy thing. I'm getting infuriated to listen to this. Sorry, guys.
I'd heard that it was a ticket issue. They did not sell as many tickets as they had hoped. I had asked around about it. I saw sections tarped off, and my understanding was Frankie was, the agreement was that he was going to get paid a pretty good amount of money. I heard 7 figures. I heard it was the highest payday of his career.
So they pulled him off the couch with the highest payday of his career. Imagine BKFC paying 7 figures. I told you guys, that company does not know what they're doing. Imagine saying, Frankie, we'll give you 7 figures. But regardless of that, you lied to him. I mean, that is insane. Imagine if somebody offered Ariel a job. I'll give you a job. You're going to make $2 million a year. Ariel quit his job. And then they said, oh, never mind. Never mind. We'll give you $100,000. We'll give you $100,000 for your pain and suffering. I mean, that's insane to me, but let's continue.
That's why he took it. And it makes sense. And then they didn't sell the tickets and they didn't meet their marks. And so they offered him X amount, very low 6 figures, to just kind of walk away. And he said no. And then he pushed back and they came to another agreement for a higher number, but nowhere near what he was going to make. Nowhere near what he was going to make.
Finally. Okay, now we get some information. How crazy is that? That potentially BKFC offered him millions only to pay him like $150K. Imagine interrupting your life for months, putting your life on hold for months, taking away the opportunity that they offered you. This isn't about me wanting to see Frankie fight, but they took the opportunity they offered him and then blamed it on his medicals, making him look like damaged goods to anyone else. Not that I'm saying Frankie was going to fight anywhere else anyway, but still, why not just come out and say, look, it didn't work out. There were some financial issues. We're gonna figure it out with Frankie and we're gonna make him whole. Instead, they lied about it and said, oh, this old fucking guy that's been KO'd 100 gazillion times. You knew that when you signed him, you bums. But yeah, Ariel's definitely gonna go in on him, right? And talk about it, right?
And he passed everything, what I was told. And ultimately, they had to make that financial decision. I wish they would have just come out and said that. They did not. And they pinned it on his, history, medical, all that stuff, getting knocked out. The truth is, they knew all of this when they signed him. And
by the way, at least I appreciate Ariel talking about this a little bit now. But you notice the way when he talks about when he's a shill or he's a friend with somebody and he has to cover anything negative, it's like always like he's looking down. Like I know he does this with other things too, but I'm saying he's covering it like his dog just passed away. That's the best way to describe it. He's covering it like he just walked in on his wife fucking another dude, or his wife just left him. That's the way he's, they should have they did this, did it. Like, where's the outrage? Where's the disgust? But you're friends with them, and now you're going to pivot to a documentary puff piece.
And what I was told was he passed everything and there were no red flags, and he is upset that they're pinning it on this. And I can understand that. And so, yeah, that's not great. That is not great. And they're still trying to figure things out. Look, their Triller ownership has been called into question. The future has been called into question. This is not a BKFC like puff piece propaganda. They didn't pay us to do this. This is going to be my look at like, what is this? And it was also my first time at a BKFC event.
If you're waiting for more about Frankie Edgar, you aren't going to get it. Let me rewind that back real quick because I really need you guys to hear this. Because what's insane to me is this is the best that Ariel could offer. This is the only harsh words he offered about BKFC and David Feldman. Listen.
Their Triller ownership has been called into question. The future has been called into question. This is not a BKFC like puff piece prop.
I didn't rewind it enough. Let me rewind it a little bit more.
All of this when they signed him. And what I was told was he passed everything and there were no red flags. and he is upset that they're pinning it on this. And I can understand that. And so, yeah, that's not great. That is not great.
That is not great. That's the only thing what supposedly the number one journalist in combat sports has to offer up about a fighter being brutally and openly scammed out of his fight purse, and then also essentially slandered in the media. Because everyone was like, oh, Frankie's got CTE. Frankie's been KO'd too many times. Frankie shouldn't be fighting. They dragged him off the couch with a promise of a massive payday, only to then take that away, offer him a consolation prize while shitting on his health publicly and lying about his health publicly. And meanwhile, you got guys like Ariel Helwani brushing it under the rug and Damon Martin, who couldn't get Feldman's dick out of his mouth last week. Disgusting. But the transition here, man, the pivot here from Ariel Helwani is what really disgusted me.
And they're still trying to figure things out. Look, their Triller ownership has been called into question. The future has been called into question. This is not a BKFC like puff piece propaganda. They didn't pay us to do this. This is going to be my look at like, what is this? And it was also my first time.
Don't worry, we're going to see something really soon about what this BKFC documentary looks like. But you guys tell me, what do you think it's going to be? It's Ariel Helwani as one of the journalists and one of the biggest journalists in combat sports helping to promote BKFC. That is what he's doing. Okay, we're going to see a little bit of it in a second.
My first time at a BKFC event. In fact, would you guys like to see the trailer? We have a trailer.
Yes.
With the chat. Hey, chat, would you like to see the trailer for the film?
No more about Frankie Edgar. Already has pivoted away from that. Matter of fact, speaking of Frankie getting scammed, speaking of the fans who bought tickets getting bait and switched, you guys want to see my documentary of me promoting BKFC because I'm friends with Feldman and Conor, and Feldman comes on my show, and Conor McGregor is one of the biggest stars in the sport, and I don't care that he's out raping up a storm on a regular basis. Okay, I don't care about any of that. You guys want to see this? Oh, it's not a puff piece. You guys tell me what it is because he's going to play the promo in a second. I'm going to let you see a little bit of it.
Chat, thumbs up if you'd like to see the trailer. I guess we're not in real time, right?
I mean, there's a little bit of a delay.
Here's the trailer for our first Uncrowned film, which premieres tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. in EDA. It is entitled, What is BKFC? An Uncrowned Film.
This is disgraceful. I got to pause it right here. This guy's a bitch, man. I mean, really a bitch. I mean, think about that. Really think about that. I know I was speaking of Frankie getting scammed. Check out my trailer for my documentary on a company that's full of fucking slime balls. Check it out. Check it out, chat.
We'll see how violent it gets. It's always different when I'm in the ring.
Expect some blood. Yeah. A lot of blood.
People who say this is too much violence.
Grow a set, baby. Grab that grow a set, yeah. Walk with your balls, yeah.
Like, what do you feel right now? Pain.
You guys tell me what that is. It'll come out tomorrow. Maybe we'll get some interesting Conor McGregor segments from it. You guys tell me what that is. That's a puff piece for BKFC. That is a means to promote BKFC. It would not shock me if Ariel was getting a check cut by BKFC and David Feldman and or Conor McGregor. And I know I didn't have a channel, and you guys ought to take my word for this. For many, many years, I knew that Ariel Helwani was getting his checks cut by the UFC. I knew it. He was a shill for the UFC. I knew it from day one. And then eventually the whole Brock Lesnar thing happened. He left, and then he cries, and he's like, well, my checks were getting signed. The reason Ariel doesn't have, he has some credibility, okay? But the reason his credibility is so shot with the MMA community is because now when he criticizes Dana White in the UFC, it's essentially only because they kicked him to the curb. Okay, and that story has been told a million different ways, and I feel like there's nobody really telling the true story. But at the end of the day, I think Ariel takes him. He clearly gets paid from Jake Paul. I think he gets paid from BKFC. He doesn't want to betray that friendship. He doesn't want to betray something that cuts him a check. And here he is, literally on the back of a fighter, a legend of the sport, getting scammed. The quote-unquote biggest journalist in the game is here promoting this. I mean, what a joke. I'm just going to fast forward so you don't have to watch the whole promo because I want you guys to see when he comes back. Listen to this.
He's an engineer. Shout out to Rick, who spearheaded the whole thing from a production standpoint as well. And I think that's all the shout outs.
What about you?
It's going to be great.
It's going to be great. Very excited. And we already have a second one in the oven for next month. So hopefully you guys will enjoy.
So there you go. I'll say this. People have been like, Ariel, he asked the tough questions. He holds the UFC to account. If this is the face of the resistance against the UFC propaganda machine, against the snaky, the snake oil salesmen within the MMA community, we're fucked. If this is the face of the resistance, and a lot of fans are just okay accepting the garbage that Dana White spews, the garbage that David Feldman spews, the garbage that Conor does and gets away with. Not in Ireland, I guess. And it's like, it just sickens me that Ariel, there's times where I 100% agree with him. I've defended him. I've been called an Ariel fanboy before. I think he does the best interviews. But at the end of the day, his credibility all depends on who he's actually talking to. Because he doesn't care as long as you're his friend. He doesn't care what you do as long as you're his friend. He's going to promote BKFC, and as long as you help monetarily benefit him, he will sweep it under the rug. He will cover it up. Because you know what I did? And this is the last thing we'll check out. I went on Uncrown. I couldn't find a single article about Frankie Edgar. I couldn't find one. I went to his YouTube channel. You know how they clip out videos? Couldn't find a single one because he only talked about it for 30 seconds and pivoted to his documentary each and every time. So I think this was an embarrassment. I think this was disgusting. I think this was absolute dog shit media coverage from Ariel Helwani, who's supposed to be one of the biggest voices in the community. And I think really he should be criticized for it and he should be embarrassed. So I wanted to make this video quickly. At least he acknowledged it now. That they did, before he was acting like, well, we don't really know. Frankie said this, BKFC said that. We don't really know. At least he says, well, I heard, and he actually breaks it down a little bit. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and thank you so much for watching.